Okay, under Minnesota state statute, I believe it's 13.43. Okay, hello. Um, Police departments and cities, okay, are legally required to provide any resume of a police officer, the mayor, a public employee, the city clerk, okay, because they're all public officials, and what they create is public data. So when you request a public official's resume, because you want to verify, where they went, little extra checks and balances, they're legally required to provide it to you under Minnesota state law and statute. Okay, they cannot deny you any public official's resume. If you're just asking for their resume, they can redact personal information like phone numbers, emails, social security numbers, okay? But that's about it. Everything else on their resume is all public data because they're public officials. Now, I just requested Carson Thomas, the chief of police of the Rosemount Police Department. I just requested his resume, and he was just recently hired after 6 months of being interim chief. Okay, after Chief Michael Dahlstrom was forced to resign, they hired him as chief of police. And according to the city clerk, it was an internal hiring process. Okay, meaning they did not look outside the Rosemount Police Department to hire a new chief. Okay, now Carson Thomas, he was deputy chief since about 2021, I believe, or maybe a little bit before that. But just ask yourself this question: if you're a city of Rosemount and your police department just had a big scandal that was on local news, okay, about your former chief Michael Dahlstrom being forced to resign because of internal issues, like a dysfunctional police department, basically. Okay, would you then turn and look internally for new leadership from a dysfunctional police department? So just ask yourself that logical question. Like the city of Rosemount, they hired Carson Thomas, who was in the chain of command, he was one level below Michael Dahlstrom, who was forced to resign for being in a dysfunctional police department. Okay, and then they said they were going to release the actual reason why Michael Dahlstrom resigned. They never did. The city of Rosemount, they redacted everything that is public data. Okay, the only things that the city of Rosemount, they're not the CIA, they're not the FBI. Okay, they're not. They broke the law by redacting all those reports that officers were making. The only thing that they could redact about these internal complaints was their names, phone numbers, and addresses, and emails. That's the only thing the city of Rosemount was allowed to redact. But instead, okay, they redacted almost a lot of the stuff that these officers were complaining about, okay, which you would have been able to find out why he was actually fired, okay? So the city of Rosemount, okay, I grew up there. I'm a hometown boy. Okay, I played for the Irish football. I played track, hockey. My dad's an assistant administrator there. I know all the football coaches. I know the hockey coach. Okay, and I just want you to know it's a very dysfunctional city in itself. Okay, if you ever seen that movie Hot Fuzz, okay, where all these crimes are going on behind the scenes, but the entire town pretends like everything's okay. Like when people come and visit, they think, oh, this is the perfect town to live in. That's what Rosemount is on the surface. You'd think it's a very nice place to raise your child, right? But when you scratch the surface, if you peel back the onions, you'll begin to cry, literally, of how corrupt and dysfunctional the city of Rosemount is, and how much crime actually happens internally. Not only in District 196, the school board, okay, Rosemount High School, middle school, elementary school, all the schools, okay, the police department, city hall, it's everywhere. Okay, and that's what the Masons and Stones bring to each city they go to and take over, is pure corruption, pure lies. Okay, so for the simple fact that Rosemount, the city of Rosemount, cannot even provide a chief of police's resume, that's a huge red flag. That should scare you if you're a citizen of Rosemount. If you're an honest, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen of the city of Rosemount, you are being scammed. You are being schemed every day you live in that town. Because on the surface, it looks beautiful, it looks great. It looks like a great place to raise your kids. Okay? But again, Rosemount High School, I didn't do any drugs my entire life. I didn't even know how to, when I was a kid, I was taught all this bad stuff by my peers in the city of Rosemount. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that's how your child learns to do very bad things, is by, number one, going to school and making friends that, peer pressure them and corrupt them. Okay? And that's how it works. Like, your child is a million times safer at home with you. Okay? A million times safer. Your child is more likely to be in danger of violence, drugs, sex, STDs, just by going to a public school like Rosemount High School. Okay? So, and again, we all put our children in these schools because, again, in our brains, it's normal. We've been brainwashed, or we've been wired to think what we do with our children is normal because we went through it and we see everybody else doing it. And that's the reason why they refer to us as apes. The Latin definition for an ape is they're copycats. They copy each other. So don't feel like, if you're a parent that is, questioning Rosemount and Rosemount High School and their schooling system, you have every right to question it. Maybe this is not normal. Maybe this is not the best option for my child. Now, keep in mind the fact that the Minnesota Department of Education, the people in charge of all of our schools in Minnesota, they're involved with a $1 billion fraud scandal. These are our teachers, administrators, okay, guidance counselors. Those are the teachers' union and their organization that they get paid from, the Minnesota Department of Education, where they get their curriculum, okay, where your kids get their lunch menus every year. They're involved with over $1 billion of fraud just in the past 5 years. Okay? Now and here's one thing I'd like to see the Minnesota Department of Education change. Change your school lunch program so it can't be ripped off by fraud, number one. Okay, number two, provide better food for our children. The food you feed our children is the exact same food that you feed prisoners in state penitentiaries, state jails, county jails. It's made by they source it out to the same companies. Okay? So that's just my little 2 cents, my 6 cents today. I love you, Masons and Stones, and my pet rocks. Love you, MMCQ. Go to PresidentUniverse.com. Read my latest blog post called America. Okay? My dad recently gave me this book called The Violence Project, written by, I forget the author, but I think it's a teacher, former teacher. The United States of America leads the world 6 times over, okay? 75% or more, okay? In school violence. Now, if we lead the world in school violence, what do you think else we lead the world in? School drugs that impacts your children, school sex that impacts your children, okay? And an array of terrible things that all your children learn at these public schools, okay? And the Christian private schools, they're no different either. There's the same societal peer pressures. I'm not picking on one or the other, but everything bad or any trouble that your child usually gets into from, age 5 to 18 when they're going to these schools, it stems from the school they go to or their friends, okay? So check out that article. It's PresidentUniverse.com, called America, okay? Keep in mind, guns are not for brave people. They're not for bright people. They're not for smart people. They're not for tough people. Guns are for very stupid, violent, and crazy societies. And then I'll finish with this. Ask yourself this question. If you had a choice to live in a society where your child could grow up with no guns, or the other choice was live in a society that your child grows up with more guns than people, if you had to choose one, if you got to choose, which society would you want your child growing up in? And I hope that's like a common sense question where you don't try to, juxtaposition or defend it. No, just answer that logical question to yourself. Look in the mirror. If my child could grow up in a society with no guns compared to a society with more guns than actual people living in it, which society would you want your child growing up in? Okay? I love you. Have a great day.